We've got all that. But joining us is Roger Stone for the next few segments to discuss from his sources. And by the way, we predicted this not just last Friday, but Sunday and Monday. We said, we think they're going to black out a bunch of it. The president can order it released, but they've already blacked most of it out. They've done this before. Well, instead of doing that, what they've done with 2,000 plus pages they've released to 3,000 is they just held back 300 files while they decide what to do. And they just told the president, you're violating national security if you do this. And the word I got is they just double-crossed him last minute and didn't put it out. The president doesn't want to look embarrassed. CNN's acting like he reneged and double-crossed everybody when he could have just done like past presidents and said, no, I'm not releasing it. And so you're seeing deep state quicksand from my intel basically refuse in a mutinous action to go along with the president, which is, like Schumer said, the intelligence agency can have 7 ways to Sunday to get you. And we've been seeing them leak on him. He said it was the FBI director that did it. It turned out it was. And it's just a mess. It's a civil war going on in the country. We'll get Roger Stone's take on this briefly because I want to segue into some of the big intel you've got. And I don't know how much of it you can get into now, but it dovetails with mine about what's really going on in the White House. I know you tried to have a longer meeting with me this morning, and I had to get off the phone, so we were unable to complete our decision process on this. But this is really important, obviously. So I've gotten overwhelmed at this point, Roger, just how crazy this has gotten, the fog of war here. But you agreed with me this morning that the tide is turning. We've had a really good 10 days. The deep states, the corrupt elements of it are on the run.
First of all, I think this is a graphic illustration of how quickly American politics and attitudes towards everything can change in just 10 days. Between the Uranium One bombshell that the Obama administration engaged in a cover-up of an effort by the Russians to get control of 20% of our uranium output, with big bribes to the Clintons as part of it, followed by the revelations that Hillary and her people paid for the smear dossier in what you deemed PP-gate, where they attempted to smear Trump. By the way, probably $3 million of your tax dollars funneled to that operation through the FBI. And now Trump taking a bold and I think courageous stand and releasing the documents only to have the deep state do a rear guard action where they're attempting to redact, censor, hold back as much as they possibly can, essentially countermanding the president in defying the will of
So your intel agrees with my intel and with Gorka is saying, and Lou Dobbs, that's exactly what happened.
No, there's no question. The guys in Langley are moving quickly to cover their asses. They've got to clean these up quickly. Why they didn't already have these redactions done, why they didn't already have...
Clearly they have it sitting around for blackmail purposes.
They thought that they would bluff him and he would never allow release of these. As I reported at InfoWars, the intelligence agencies lobbied the president that this was going to hurt them by revealing their methods, their sources, their operations. It's nonsense. They lied then, they lie now. That's what they don't want people to see. The same people who undermined John F. Kennedy and liquidated him are the people trying to take down our president.
And I want to be specific because that's even buried in the news that last minute they just said, oh, last minute, let us hold this back. There's not time. Put it to this committee, 6 months, and just they made the decision. So what's the headline on that? CIA, deep state, does rearguard action, mutinies against Trump, refuses to release documents?
But look, until I can, they've only put out a small portion of what they have. We have to review how much of it's just redacted, just blacked out. Lee Harvey Oswald met with Black at the Black, and they discussed, and the next 5 paragraphs are just blacked out by some bureaucrat. It's most definitely an effort to nullify the law put in place by Congress and signed by the president to let the people know what really happened. The good news, Alex, is that I was told they went to him and said, these 200 documents can never be released. We just don't have enough time to explain to you why. And he said, good, put a time clock of 6 months on them and we'll look at them. So he's attempting to keep his commitment. I am certain that no one has brought him the documents showing him the redactions, but he'll look into that. If they redacted these, if they censored them so much that they were mush, that they were useless for historians or researchers, the president will be able to see that.
Well, I think that's the process that's now going to happen in the next 6 months, where they just take each page and dip it in black ink, and that's just incredible that we're 53 years later, and we already know the truth. When we come back, Roger, I want to get into what we were discussing earlier as much as you can, because I don't think we can sit on this information dealing with what's happening inside the Trump White House. Okay, some of this news we're going to have to break in studio next week. I may even get Roger here this weekend, because we've got to really go over this entire model of how they're planning to take out the president. We have the blueprint. Not that we've reverse engineered. We have it. Okay, we know who the players are. It's gotten very clear now. And the exact plan, and the neocons working with the Democrats and the whole deal. Now, it's not going well for them, but they're biding their time. Roger's got a huge data dump. And you're going to get it exclusively here. People say, oh, we don't care about the intrigue of the White House. This is the intrigue of the ship of state trying to turn the republic around. And the whole world's watching this, and we see Catalonia declaring independence. Spain declared martial law. Federal rule. They're sending in federal troops. There's just wild stuff happening everywhere. DOD planned solar storm-based national blackout drill during Antifa protest in November. And Antifa says they're planning terror attacks. Then the media spins it and says, no, they're not. Just like when CNN says, yeah, the deep state's going to kill Trump. And then they say, Jones is crazy. His favorite conspiracy theory is that we're talking about civil war or the 25th Amendment or removing Trump. And then next hour, they promote it. So it's a very weird tactic they've got, where they prepare it in public, but then say they're not doing it. It's a military tactic, actually. You know, don't run, we are your friends. Roger, obviously this is huge news. What do you want to break now, just so folks coming up next week realize how accurate this was? Just like when we said, months ago in April, no, the president's not going to send in 100,000 troops into Syria and take out Damascus, even though his generals, McMaster, was saying they would on CNN. 3 days later, the president came out and said those exact words. So you're about to do that yet again, to let people know what's going on, dealing with military activity in the White House. Go ahead.
First of all, I think it's important to recognize exactly who General H.R. McMaster is. Let's remember that McMaster was put in place on the recommendation of Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, presumably his lovely wife, Ivanka, both federal employees, members of this administration. And he is formerly worked for a think tank funded by the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and George Soros. He's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He wrote a book criticizing the Johnson administration's conduct of the war, where the generals were lying to the president. And some have taken that to believe that he is a non-neocon, but he is neocon through and through. He is bolstered internally by Dina Habib Powell, formerly of the Bush White House and working for the senator from Texas. She is an ardent globalist and never Trumper. So McMaster is very close to both General Kelly and General Pettis. And this is what we call the 7 Days in May group. And they are, without any question, neocons. Let's remember that all three of them wanted to send 150,000 troops to Syria right after the president ordered a strategic bombing there. And you'll remember that the president very wisely narrowed the assault down so it would have some military value, and also to send a little message to the Chinese and the North Koreans and the Iranians that Donald Trump is not the cream puff that Obama was. And I think they got the message loud and clear. But even then, he doesn't want to go intervene in these places ineffectively. And the president wisely said to their recommendation of 150,000 troops, not happening. In any event, I have learned, you'll remember that the president announced that we would continue our engagement in McMaster, but he would not be willing to say a number. He dropped the number 9,000. What he gave was Pettis the authority to send more than 9,000. And then recently, McMaster essentially gave the president a decision memo on 50,000 troops. Alex, that would be our largest troop allotment ever to Afghanistan. So rather than withdrawing, we would be expanding, inconsistent with Trumpism. And I'm told the president looked at it and said, "What's this?" And he said, "Well, that's the number of troops we need for Afghanistan." And the president said, "We need to have a meeting on this. We need to have a meeting on this." And he wouldn't sign it. So, I mean, this is the kind of trickery I assume McMaster that thought he could finesse the president. This is the way the neocons infect the Trump White House.
By the way, this is just bombshell because we broke 3 days before the president word for word said, "I'm pushing back. We're not invading Damascus." Hillary and Obama started that war. We're on the wrong side. We're taking on ISIS. We broke that because obviously it came right from the president. Now you're giving people the intel of what they tried to slip past him dealing with Afghanistan. Recap that. That's so important.
The president announced he was going to allow us to keep troops in Afghanistan. He would let General Pettis decide how many. They hinted that it was around 9,000. Then suddenly we have H.R. McMaster giving the president the document authorizing 50,000 troops. Obviously, no one had ever mentioned this to the president. Obviously, he understands it's too large an engagement. We're supposed to be winding down there. We're winding up. And their argument is this: Mr. President, when we leave, everything will collapse. It will all go to, and the problem is that will happen whether we leave tomorrow or whether we leave 15 years from now. What they're trying to do here won't work. And this is the sleight of hand of the neocons.
And give people the date on this. I mean, the time frame. When did this just happen?
This was within the last 10 days, I am told. The intrigue here in the Trump White House is extraordinary.
So they're like trying to get their parents to sign the report card, kind of slipping it over to them when they read the newspaper, not paying attention. That's the level of just grasping and grabbing. Let me give you some intel. They have these SIF teams that are CIA folks with Green Berets and others that have been taken and put into private contractor positions, and they're going around on hunter-killer teams. And, of course, that was in the news this week, but specifically it is Eric Prince's plan, but integrated with the Pentagon's plan, because the Pentagon, as you know, wants tens of thousands more regular troops. And so now, I guess Trump didn't want people to know the real plan, but they are launching the operations with the paramilitary forces, and so the CIA is running big teams inside the country.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So what do you make of all this?
Let me take a Marco Rubio moment.
Yes, you've got laryngitis, I know, right now from talking 20 hours a day.
I'm really starting to lose my voice because I have been working with the media to try to understand what's transpired here in the deep state effort to undermine the president's order for full disclosure.
This is just incredible. Stay there and do a few more minutes. I'm going to let you go because of your voice. Yep. I want to look at the negatives that are here, but also the positives, that we're winning intellectually and the country's coming back economically. But this could be a recovery that kill in the crib. So the fight is at a key moment right now. We've got to stay focused and hold steady and move forward. I'm Alex Jones. To really show you how fluid this is, last Friday, the media said that Roger Stone and I were wrong and that the president was not going to release any of the JFK files that were set to be released the next Thursday evening at midnight going into Friday morning. And the next morning, the president tweeted exactly what we'd said, what he told Roger, that barring new information, he was looking at releasing them. And then last minute, he says, yeah, they're coming out today. And they go, oh, we can't. There's other stuff we found. He goes, okay, you got 6 months. But they just did that as one more, time. And the president is about secrecy with military stuff, which is a smart thing to do. You don't want to tell your enemies what you're going to do. But this is 53 years ago. 91% of the American people in Gallup polls believe there were multiple shooters. Anyone that's serious knows that. We even know what happened with JFK. And so that's why this is so important. I want to play this clip and then go back to Roger Stone. This is Gorka, who recently left the White House, one of the president's top advisors, says deep state withholding of JFK files stinks to high heaven. And we've also got other clips here, again, where Lou Dobbs and others are saying this is outrageous. Here it is.
Joining us tonight, former strategist, deputy assistant to President Trump, now the chief strategist for the Make America Great Again coalition, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Lou.
Quite a day in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Let's start with the obvious, and that is the delay of these documents, which the president told us that we were going to have today. The law says we must have by midnight tonight, but which we will not have. Instead, only about 2,500 of 35,000 overall documents, some of which have been under seal for 54 years.
Right. First things first, let's dispense with the fake news. I was reading the Daily Mail on the way here that said President Trump, new cover-up with JFK documents. This has nothing to do with President Trump. This is the FBI and the CIA requesting to be able to redact some of the documents.
To hell with them.
Well, yeah,
I mean that seriously.
Look,
to hell with them.
Because
why should we, our president, any administration, put up with two agencies that over the course of what would be now 25 years since some of these documents were sealed, they've had 25 years to do the right thing, cover assets, change methods.
There's only two reasons that you would do that redaction right now. The reasons are you protect active operations or you protect sources and methods. Neither of those can be true 50 years later. So what is it? Something embarrassing. And we have seen in the last 8 years the rank politicization of both the Bureau and the CIA under Brennan. So it really stinks to high heaven.
And again, I don't want to toot our horn here for breaking it last week, but facts are facts, because they're always saying we're not credible. Mainstream media does that because they lie for a living, unless it's a few pockets of reality like Lou Dobbs, like you just heard. They got relegated over on Fox Business, even though he had higher ratings than anybody ever did on CNN. It just shows how crazy it is. But I digress. That's exactly what we feared, is that they would black it out. Because the president isn't down there in the CIA running all this himself. Just like I'm not running the shipping department for our products that's a mile away from my other office. And that's exactly what's happened. And I guarantee you, when it comes out in 6 months, they're going to dip each piece of paper in big old buckets of black paint. You'll have Lee Harvey Oswald met with, bloop, just like Roger Stone said. So, again, this is not the president's doing, and we're not defending the president. This is what we predicted would happen, Stone.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the things we learned in these documents is at least 40 journalists were on the direct payroll of the CIA. Oops. That's one of the reasons they're fighting so furiously to hide this, because they most likely are paying journalists today. Secondarily, here's their big problem. The government, the official finding of the Warren Commission accepted by the U.S. government is that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill Kennedy as the agent of a foreign country, that he was a nutty communist, but he wasn't working for the Russians. Ergo, how can any of this have national security implications? It's not possible. You think about that little problem for them. Beyond that, they are, I think, caught by surprise. That explains the stories late last week that said you and I were wrong. They had a leak. They thought they were going to get him to release nothing. They were surprised, I think, when he moved towards transparency. Then they came back and they hard cased him that these 200 documents will kill agents on the ground, Mr. President. And he said, I need 6 months to look at this. So I think he's skeptical of them. Read it in his tweets. He understood what the right thing to do here was. And I think it is crucial to recognize that what they don't want the voters to figure out, the American people to figure out, is the same things they did then they are doing now. Lying, promulgating fake news.
And by the way, these documents are incredible. It's got Mockingbird stuff in there, buying off all these newspapers, and it says, we agree that the free press is essential, but we need to do this. And so there they are, putting out the talking points for the mainstream media, just like they still do today. I mean, they say it's disinfo that Anderson Cooper's CIA. The guy's a robber baron heir. I know you know him, and he admittedly worked at the CIA. It's like CNN saying that the Nazi collaborator, George Soros, was never a Nazi collaborator. He went on 60 Minutes and said he was proud of it.
No, look, Anderson Cooper has been on my international best dressed list that I publish at Stone Cold Truth and Stone on Style every year for about 4 years. And I used to think he was a relatively objective journalist, but he's got off the deep end so badly for the whole Clinton-Obama narrative of things that I've really lost enormous respect for him.
Wow. Well, it's incredible that there is a lot of meat to what was released. No wonder they didn't want any of this released. How they were owning TV journalists and print journalists and controlling major newspapers, and how they were trying to shut down other newspapers reporting on it.
I think this is a key thing. There are several stories today that correctly say that among these documents are proof that the KGB conducted their own extensive investigation into Kennedy's murder and concluded that it was orchestrated by Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, that is all reflected in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. It's all meticulously reported, and it has now been confirmed by the federal documents. By the way, you can go to Amazon. You can go to Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, and soon, if not now, on the InfoWars channel.
That's right. You're a best-selling author and researcher on that. That's why we've got you on. I want to get St. John Hunt on again to break this down. We've only got about a minute left here. Look, globalism's in trouble. Countries are breaking away from it everywhere. The economy's coming back. We're having huge victories. The deep state's getting hurt. As it turns out, everything they said we'd done with the Russians, they'd done. I don't see how they survive this politically unless Sessions still keeps being weak. And we know the constellation of power in the White House, how the president is surrounded. And believe it or not, I guess Kelly's not the worst that's in there. But it's just a nightmare situation. And hopefully we'll be able to release soon the deep state plan to remove Trump, because he needs to get that blueprint specifically. And I know you have that blueprint as well. But I know he's been warned of that blueprint. And so it's just very dismaying.
You know, my sources tell me that at this point, the assistant attorney generals around Jeff Sessions, and particularly the de facto attorney general, Ron Rosenstein, coddle Sessions, but essentially make sure that nothing he orders happens. He was never allowed to pick his own assistant attorney generals. And nobody around him is a Trump loyalist. These are all deep state people.
So he's a man in a tower. He's like Rapunzel. He's in charge of nothing.
Exactly. And he's got his own weird notions about marijuana and asset forfeiture and so on, but he's not even in the play. Rosenstein.
So he's a patriot, but he's like somebody from the 1940s. He's got a big, giant police state stripe down his back, and he's in La La Land. Roger Stone, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you, Alex.
That is exclusive info on the war, what we just broke down. Trump said no to 50,000 more troops.